Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. Where we left off on the wall cabinet was just before here. In the last video, which if you didn't see it or you forget, I will leave a link for that down below in the description. Made the carcass for the cabinet and then put it aside for a shop reno to happen, and now it's time to get back into it and it needs a door and some drawers. I brought it out to the shop yesterday, gave it a dusting and another quick finish sand and blasted it with a couple of coats of lacquer. And so now it is ready, and I am going to show you how I'm going to make a frame and panel door for this section right here without measuring, because you don't need to measure, because it doesn't matter how big that space is. All that matters is that the door fits in there. Okay, come on, let's make a frame and panel door today. All right, come on. Okay, so I've picked out my board of Douglas fir that I'm going to make into the rails and stiles of my door. I have selected it because it is presenting in the quarter sawn orientation on this face, which will allow nice straight grain to be going on all of my rails and stiles. And I think, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but I've got this little lighter band of stuff happening down this side. And I want my rails and stiles to be about this-ish big. So I think that's gonna, if I get all four of them out of just right down this strip here, that'll add a nice sort of visual element to them as well. And there'll be nice straight lines to complement my red oak plywood panel that's going on the inside. So I'm just gonna fire this bad boy through the planer a few times and get it down to thickness. And then actually the rest of this board I might manage to get some drawer parts out of as well. But we'll see. Not thinking that far ahead at this point. Rails and stiles right down this edge, hopefully. Alright, so I got my board planed down to thickness. It's about, I don't know, maybe 5/8 of an inch thick at this point. It's full of sap pockets and things that I'm going to have to work around. But this edge that I was looking at before has a sap pocket right here, which is about the right distance for the width of what I want my stiles to be. So what I'm going to do to lay out my stiles is I'm going to go from that sap pocket, that's going to be one edge, and then I'm going to take a prominent grain line and mark it on this board. And then I'm going to mark the edge, or just in from the edge. So this is the grain line, this is the edge. So now I'm going to follow this grain line along, and I'm going to mark there and there. There and there and there. And now I'm just going to connect these dots on the bandsaw. And I'm going to break, hopefully, all of my parts out of this. And they should be nice and straight grain. So hopefully we have enough wood in this one stick to get all the way done all of our parts here. I'm going to measure it straight off of the gap that the door needs to fit into. So I don't need to measure things. I'm just going to hold it up to where it's got to go in, and I'm just going to draw some lines just a little bit bigger than the hole that it's going in, and I'm going to hope that I get all the way down the board. So that I go stiles first because they go full height. And then the rails are going to be the width of the space minus the width of the styles. So go a little bit oversized, and then hopefully this piece down here is gonna be, oh yeah, oh lots, minus the style, maybe not lots of extra, but should have enough. Style, rails. So I'm going to give all these guys a quick blast of lacquer just so that I can orient them properly when I am when I'm cutting joinery. So I can see the tones in the wood and decide which side I'm going to be cutting my grooves on to be the inside of the doors. Remember, I was specifically picking pieces that had different tones of wood. Now I want to match up those tones so that the light side is on the inside of the frame, for example. And I can't really get a proper sense of that until I get them under finish a little bit. So now I can see this is the dark side of this one, this is the dark side of this one, etc. So that when I line them up to cut their joinery, I don't mess it up. All right, while those are curing, let's pick our chunk of panel that we're gonna be using. I got this piece of red oak plywood that I was planning on using all along. I like this cathedral-y part here being in the middle, hopefully, give or take. So all I'm gonna do at this point is just figure out that I'm gonna use this section. It's gonna be more like that kind of thing when all is said and done, but all I gotta do is sand and finish that part right there. Okay, so the contrast between the light side and the dark side is not nearly as stark as I thought that it was gonna be, but I'm still glad that I went through this so that I could establish which side was which before I cut my grooves for my panel, because if I had put these in and they were like that on the door, it would bother me. That on the door is not gonna bother me. That's dark on the outside, light on the inside. And the same with the rails. So I'm gonna mark the inside where the groove is gonna go on all of these, because double check your work before you start making cuts. And then we'll go over to the table saw and I will rip all these grooves. All right, now we just got to cut these to fit in there. Full height on the stiles. So I'm going to start by squaring off one side of each of them. And I'm just going to measure them right off here. Again, no, I don't care if it's 15 and 7/8. It needs to be exactly this tall. Doesn't matter what that number is. I want it to be tight. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so now I need to cut this one to the space in between the inside of that groove. So the bottom of that groove to the bottom of that groove. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean this guy out and clamp it there. Now, those are clamped to the door frame, and that gap right there from bottom of groove to bottom of groove, I can just do the same thing that I did before on the inside of the door with this piece of wood. Leave it just a titch oversized. So that's about a 1/16 oversized, which is exactly where I want it, because now when I cut these tenons to go in there, the whole door will be just a little bit too big, and then I can just shave it down to final fit. All right, so to cut these tenons, we are setting this table saw height to the bottom of that groove. In fact, a little bit below the bottom of that groove, because you can take more off, you can't put it back on. So we're going to go a little bit below the bottom of that groove, and we're going to cut through that way and that way to make a tenon on the end of these that should go nice into their mating parts. This board must just be a little bit thicker at this end. So just a couple of quick with a shoulder plane just to true that one up. Should get us there. Beauty. Beauty. There. Boom. All right. Well, let's get a panel in there. That cathedral is almost dead center if I cut this side. So, sweet. There. It's actually not quite. I cut a little bit off this side first to get that nice and centered. A little bit off this side, get that centered, and then we'll cut it to size. There we go. There's our door. Let's get some glue on it. Go. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Just a little bit too big. Just a little bit too big is exactly where we want it. Okay, I like to mark off my spots with green tape because it helps me see where things need to be removed. And then I'm going to cut away tape. Where I need to mortise that out. And the depth, these crappy little home store hinges don't need to have very much removed because they're super thin. I do wish that somebody would come up with a middle ground between these crappy Home Depot hinges and like the $60 high-end ones from companies like Brusso. Can nobody make like a $20 hinge, like a decent quality $20 hinge for guys like me who can't bring themselves to spend $60 on a hinge but want better than this? Yo, that's what needs to get out of there. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you're looking at it, this hinge is like fully the width of my door. So I'm just gonna gut this out on the table saw. If it didn't go full depth, I would mark out the edge of it as well, so that I could mortise in. But because this goes full depth, I'm just going to take it to the table saw and bust it out. Just taking a little nibble. Little nibble. That's fun to say. Little nibble. Okay, so same kind of thing over here. Is start with some tape. Mark out where my mortises go. Marking out where my mortises go. Using the tape to make it easier to see. It's not a very good song. This guy goes in this way. Just transfer those mortise marks to the carcass. Using the mortises that we put in the door. That is where my mortise goes. I still have this guy set from before, so I can do my front. And then, if I had a router that would fit in here, I could zing most of that out with a router, but I do not. Nor, unfortunately, do I have a chisel. I don't have a shorty chisel that I could just get in there. So I'm going to take one of the narrow blades out of one of my planes. I'm just going to pop the blade out of my apron plane, and I'm going to get that out of there with that. That's a perfectly good little chisel. Hopefully, oh, yes. Try not to go all the way through the cabinet. Actually, I didn't even check. Make sure these won't go all the way through the cabinet. Oh, just about. I might actually file these screws down just a titch to make sure they're not going to go all the way through. Yeah, that's probably a good idea because it's really close to them popping out the other side. And my little shorty screws that I ground down for this side. There we go. Okay, so a little tight there, but a nice gap there. Little tight there, not even going in there. And then actually pretty darn close, maybe a little bit off here. I'm just going to mark this up. Here. Here. And here are my main points. But we're close. Stop there and we'll check. And then this looks like we're coming this way. Get our handle out of the way. Focus down here. Nice and lightly, barely taking any. Go nice and slow. More at this side, but we do want to. We don't just want to take here. We want to move our way back and get the whole thing eventually. Let's have a look. Okay, better there, better there. This would go in, so still just right here. And then maybe just a little bit on that. Yeah, very close. And if anything, we want to taper it back away from the front to allow it to swing shut. Let's see if we got there. It fits around the reveal, around the outside. It's actually pretty good. I'm actually pretty happy with that. It's not so far off that any of it's going to bother me. While I'm just doing my finish sanding around the outside, I'm going to slightly taper that back a little more so it doesn't stick quite so much on its way by. Actually, I'll probably just do that with a hand plane. Just taking a little bit off that inside edge so it doesn't catch on the cabinet on its way by. But other than that, final sanding around the outside, and we're done. So that is how I make a frame and panel door. I use plywood for this one, but I would have done it exactly the same way if I was using solid wood, except that I would have left more room in the grooves of the stiles for it to expand and contract out and back into. Sometimes I put little bits of foam in there as well, and I only glue in the middle of the top and bottom to allow it to expand and contract without cracking and stuff. But other than that, it would have been exactly the same process. I'm going to do a pull on it when I do all of the drawers. I'm going to do all the pulls together so that they're all the same size and stuff. And that's what I'm going to do next time. So stick around. We'll see you in the next one where we're doing drawers for down there. And we'll get this guy done. All right. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, everybody. Bye for now. Doors in. Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. We're getting back into the wall cabinet today. The last time that we I have a flying thing again. I try not to let it bother me. Alright, so I've picked my board of Douglas fir. I have selected it because the quarter sawn orientation of the wood is presenting on this face. Nice, close, straight, linear situation happening here. Nice, linear situation. Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. We're getting back into the wall cabinet today. Where we left off, if you'll remember, if we're hearkening back, these garbage ass hinges and screws that are soft as Somebody make a better fucking set of hinges that isn't $60 goddamn dollars. Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. We're heading back into the wall cabinet today. We're not heading into the wall cabinet. It is much too small. We are much too large. And today, I'm going to show you how I'm going to make and fit and install a frame and panel door in a space that we already have established, and it's going to go in there. Yes, it is. Theoretically, a door is going to go in there. And, yeah, a door pull for later. Later door pull. I'm going to do a later door pull.